What happens when international politics and oil trade collide? The answer may surprise you. Let's rewind to April 27, 2023. An ordinary day at sea turned into a global headline when Iran's navy seized a Marshall Islands-flagged oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman. This wasn't a random act of piracy, though. The seizure occurred after a collision with an Iranian boat, a collision which resulted in injuries to several crew members, and 2 members of the boat's crew reported missing. This event didn't take place in just any stretch of water. It happened near the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow strip of sea that holds the status of being a vital artery for global oil shipments. One could argue that it's one of the most strategically important waterways in the world. Now, this incident didn't occur in isolation. It was the latest in a series of similar incidents in the region, including attacks on ships and the seizure of oil tankers. But why? To understand that, we have to look at the broader geopolitical context. Tensions between Iran and the US have been escalating since 2018. That year marked a significant turning point when the US decided to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal, a move that sent shockwaves through international relations. The US didn't stop there. It went on to reimpose sanctions on Iran, adding fuel to an already smoldering fire. The seizure of the oil tanker came hot on the heels of the US, UK, and EU imposing tougher sanctions on Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. Their reason? Alleged human rights violations. This incident marks yet another flashpoint in the increasingly volatile relationship between Iran and the US. Just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. In the early days of May 2023, Iran made a bold move, seizing a second oil tanker within a week. This time, the Strait of Hormuz, a vital artery for the world's oil supply, was the scene of the action. The vessel in the spotlight was the Panama-flagged Niovi. According to the US Navy, the Niovi didn't sail into Iranian waters by choice. It was forced there by several Iranian vessels, a move that once again left the international community on edge. The naval force of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was identified as the party responsible for the seizure. The Iranian judiciary chimed in with a statement of its own, saying that the seizure was the result of a judicial order following a complaint. But the US Fifth Fleet saw things differently. They called the seizure and the one a few days prior a violation of international law. The US didn't just sit back and watch, it demanded the release of the seized ship. But this call didn't come out of the blue. It was a continuation of the harsh sanctions that the US had imposed on Iran since 2018, when it took a step back from the nuclear deal. This second seizure in the Strait of Hormuz wasn't just about an oil tanker. It was a symbol of rising tensions and escalating disputes between Iran and the US. It was a clear indication that Iran was willing to push back against what it perceived as unjust actions by the US. What was at stake wasn't just the fate of the Niovi or the earlier seized tanker. It was the stability of the region, the safety of international waters, and the future of global oil supplies. With each passing incident, the stakes grow higher, and the world watches anxiously. And now we turn to the latest and perhaps most controversial incident yet. The St. Nicholas, an oil tanker previously embroiled in a dispute between the United States and Iran, found itself once again at the center of international controversy when it was seized by the Iranian Navy in the Gulf of Oman. The Iranian state-run Islamic Republic news agency reported the seizure, which came after the St. Nicholas had surrendered Iranian crude to US authorities following allegations of sanctions violations. Iran, however, has labeled this forfeiture as theft. This incident was preceded by a report from the UK Marine Trade Operations, which stated that an unnamed tanker was boarded by armed individuals near the Gulf of Oman and appeared to change its course toward Iranian waters. The tanker in question was later identified as the St. Nicholas. Previously known as the Suez Rajan, the St. Nicholas has a history of involvement in international disputes. In October, Empire Navigation, the company managing the St. Nicholas, resolved a violation of US sanctions with the US Department of Justice. The violation concerned the vessel's loading of sanctioned Iranian oil through a ship-to-ship transfer near Singapore between January and February 2022. As a result of this violation, Empire Navigation transported the sanctioned cargo to Houston, where it was forfeited to the Department of Justice. The seizure of the St. Nicholas is the latest in a series of maritime incidents in the region. contributing to the escalating tensions between the U.S. and Iran. These incidents, along with the wider disputes over oil trade and international sanctions, continue to complicate the geopolitical landscape of the region. This incident has added yet another layer of complexity to an already tangled web of international politics and oil trade. But what does all this mean for the future? In the grand chessboard of international politics, these incidents are not isolated events. They are, in fact, potent indicators of escalating tensions, particularly between the U.S. and Iran. The seizing of oil tankers, an act usually reserved for times of outright hostility, signals a concerning shift in the dynamics of this relationship. Moreover, these incidents have a ripple effect across the global oil trade. A crucial route for oil shipments, the Strait of Hormuz, is now a hotspot for conflict and uncertainty. This has the potential to disrupt the steady flow of oil, leading to price fluctuations and economic instability. The situation also raises serious concerns for global security. Commercial vessels navigating high-traffic trade routes are now at an increased risk. This could lead to a rise in insurance costs for shipping companies and, ultimately, affect the prices of goods transported via these routes. The incidents highlight a stark reality. The oil trade is not just an economic activity. It's deeply entwined with international politics and security issues. As we move forward, it's clear that the intersections of international politics and the oil trade will continue to be a point of contention and concern.